live from New York. It's the show that's welcoming Chris Broussard back from an elongated vacation.
It wasn't really a long. Yours was a long.
Right, you had an extra week.
I was here yesterday.
Bro,
Joe started, I was here.
it's just not the same without you.
Well,
It's
that's
not
good
true.
to know.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
It's not the same without Wilds either, but in a different way.
Yeah.
But it's really not the same without you.
What does that mean?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
What does that mean?
I mean,
We had a good week without
We
Wild.
did,
I mean,
buddy.
real
I
talk.
think it was good.
We want you back, but it was a good week.
I looked at the numbers.
numbers were outstanding. I actually did look at the numbers. Numbers were
Josh,
outstanding.
run the numbers.
Podcast was
Podcast
That's
is great.
Podcast is not
YouTube
We
numbers.
got-
The YouTube
Oh,
numbers were fine.
Drew, speaking of the podcast,
Look at the comments.
Check our podcast feed. There's a new solo show on the
I know.
First Things First
You got your own
podcast
show
feed.
now. I've been checking it
I
out.
bake it into. I know.
Nah, it's not baked in.
I bake it in.
It's its own meal.
No,
it's
it's
its
not.
own meal. It's not
It's
baked
baked
in.
in. It doesn't have its own feed like your thing.
What?
Well,
I
you got
own
a-
that.
Exactly.
It's our thing.
We're
I'm
on to
leaving.
you. We are on to you.
I'm
We're
a
on
team
to you.
player.
I don't know.
I was here yesterday.
Go ahead.
All right, we're starting with unfortunate news out of Dallas. Kyrie out for the year with an ACL, hurt in the first quarter of the Mavs' loss to the Kings. Now, he was averaging around 25, 5, and 5 for the year. Played in 50 of the Mavs' 62 games, heavy minutes recently, too. Mavs dropped to the 10th spot with a record of 32 and 30. Brew, your reaction to Kyrie and the Mavs' mess overall this season?
Well, first of all, I feel for Kyrie, right? Like, since he's been in Dallas, he's like remade his image. He went there with a negative image.
Yeah.
And I think since he's been there, he's actually kind of been, seems like one of the more beloved players in the league. Not just by other players have always loved him because of his game, but I just think among the fan base, his image has really gotten a nice
Just
change.
before we get to the other stuff, I just want to echo that.
Yep.
Like this, Kyrie went from on the court being a great player and off the court like, man, you're going
Right.
to have to deal with it, to like a mature voice of reason, like gave I thought the most thoughtful responses to the Luka trade, a true leader.
Yep.
I don't want to say overnight, but the moment he got to the Mavs, all of the non-basketball Kyrie stuff has been great, which is a transformation from what with Brooklyn. So because I've been very critical of him, so I want to give him credit. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And look, did money or the contract, the fact that he didn't get this huge max deal, he got good money, but did that play a role? Maybe, I don't know. But I brought that up because this really, like, it's unfortunate. He didn't get that big max deal with the Mavericks. And he was in line this summer. They had to give him a max after trading Luka. And now he had an opt-out. I'm guessing now $43 million is the opt. He'll probably opt into that and then see what happens next year and whether they give him a long-term contract after that. But I don't know. I don't think he can opt out and then they give him this deal. Dr. David Chow, who we all know, he's a former NFL physician. Now he does stuff online. He just said, he texted me, reviewing the tape. He's out this season. He says he could be out next season, or at least a large part. He said it's possible.
I think even
he
without,
said at least a large part of next season.
ACLs are usually 9 to 12 months for NBA guys.
Yeah,
If it's so I think next season's really in jeopardy.
Right, and he turns 33, I think, next week.
Yeah.
So his age, the injury, he may never get that next huge
devastating.
contract. Also, they were in line. It looked like they had a decent shot at maybe getting Kevin Durant this summer in a trade.
This is all true.
How does that get affected for this? And finally, I'll say this. This just magnifies how bad the Luka trade was.
Of course.
Because I said it, remember that next day, they got 2 years to win a championship. Now, I get to the finals, they did that. Win a championship because AD is going to be 32 this month. Kyrie's going to be 33, and both are injury prone. Both of them. So, and obviously they're both hurt right now. So is much of the team. But now this year is obviously gone. Next year is probably gone.
And the window.
so
and Nico said the
just-
window was 3 to 4 years. Listen, I'm devastated for Kyrie, the person and the player. I thought, listen, I had been up until his Mavs tenure a very vocal Kyrie critic. I thought that his play on the court was maybe a little overrated by some because it was so almost hypnotizing, the eye test. And I thought off the court, the juice wasn't always worth the squeeze with just the and he has just been, I think, on the court, some of his best basketball, and off the court, as mature and smart and thoughtful of a voice as he's grown up and all of it. And he was going to get the max because they had no choice.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, I'm not certain he's going to opt in. I think they might be in such a weird spot, he opts out and still gets a multi-year deal, just not the max.
Yeah.
But regardless, the fact of the matter is this. Kyrie Irving leads the league in minutes the last 6 weeks. Kyrie Irving leads the league in minutes since the Luka trade. When you traded Luka Doncic, a team that the position it had the most depth at was big, with very little creators. I know Lively was hurt, but Gafford and Lively there already. Kleba coming back at some point for a big and got rid of Luka. It was saying, Kyrie Irving, we have Klay Thompson there who's catch and shoot. You have to create everything. Yep. And so the team couldn't sustain any minutes without him, so he had to play all these minutes. I don't know if that's why he got hurt. I'm, though, always of a big believer that the more minutes you play, the more likely it is you'll get hurt, especially an aging player who's dealt with injuries, dealt with knee stuff. And now the verdict is now in. It is a calamity of historic proportions, this trade. What was done to the Mavs fan base for no reason whatsoever 30 days ago is the likes of which franchises often never recover from. The Mavs fans went to bed on January 31st saying, all right, our window's probably the next 10 to 12 years is our window. And, Kyrie's playing well, and Luke is coming back. And they wake up 30 days later, and they don't have their own draft pick, 27, 28, 29, or 30. Shams, an hour ago, said Anthony Davis might shut it down for the year at this point. Yep. Kyrie is likely not playing again until this time in 2026 at the earliest, and the window's closed. Your own GM said it was 3 to 4 years. Year one is done. Year two is probably done. And then you have lesser returns. You have an undersized player dealing with an injury who at that point is 34 years old, 35 years old. So listen, we're going to see if AD does come back, it's just AD as a Pelican again. Just AD with an odd roster where he has to do everything. Yeah. And so this is devastating for Kyrie and devastating for Mavs fans. And honest to God, Wilds, if it wasn't for the fact that Patrick Dumont came out and gave real voice, like we had to get rid of Luka, he doesn't have the work ethic of Charles Barkley or the sobriety of Larry Bird, I would think this is the type of thing where they might just fire the GM at the end of the year, but the owners seem to sign off on it. But it's just imploding a team for no reason, and the idea that's like it's bad luck. It was the day after the trade we talked about Anthony Davis and Kyrie being injury risks.
And their age.
And their age and injury risks.
Look, it's probably going to go down as the worst trade in NBA history, especially with the way Luka and LeBron are looking. And then even when LeBron's gone, Luka's going to be there at the height of his powers. Like, this is terrible.
Before we go, do you put any of this, like when you have to figure out when things went sideways, you can say obviously the trade. Do you think that Cuban selling the team is like the moment that things just kind of broke
I think it
apart?
has a lot to do with it.
That I know he was kind of involved still, but it felt like he was the guy, and then he was
Luka would be there if Cuban's still on the team. And I don't blame Cuban. He can do what he wants. But you blame him for selling the team? I mean, that's his prerogative.
No, I know it's his prerogative, but he turned the lowly Mavs when I was growing up into the world champion Mavs, and it felt like a real point of pride for him. Turns around, makes a move, and then the whole thing crumbles.
Yeah,
I just think it must be strange for him to watch. They were set up perfectly. And then to be in the finals, that was him.
Yeah, so I agree none of this happens without Cuban. But even if Mark Cuban had given the team away to the 100th contestant on Shark Tank, he wouldn't have thought within a year Luka Doncic would be a Laker.
Yeah, but that's what happened.
Unless no, but the thing is, it's not what when Cuban sold the team, it was certainly on the board, man. Ownership might be cheap. Might not want to pay the luxury tax. Might raise prices for the fans. I don't think it's a realistic thing. Like if the Hunts family sold the Chiefs, I would be worried about a lot of things. Like, are they going to out of nowhere trade Patrick Mahomes? Would not be one of my worries.
Right.
Because it never happened. You know what I mean? I don't think it's fair to worry about things that have never happened
You would
before.
not think.
You would worry about a lot of stuff, but.
The bottom line is this. Even if what they're saying about Luka is true, he's 25 years old. You just bank on he's going to mature. And the fact, like, if he was just putting up numbers and they were getting bounced in the first round or maybe not even making the playoffs, they were winning.
If his trajectory was, with respect, Trae Young's, who he was traded for in the draft,
I was actually thinking
one
about
playoff run that felt a little fluky and, and then a lot of up and down years, whatever, then I'll listen to it.
Yeah.
You just came off you're the defending conference champions. And this was not hard to foresee happening. No. Anthony Davis, who was injured when he got there, getting injured again, and Kyrie then being asked to do too much. Now, nobody would have thought he tore his ACL.
Kyrie's never played more than 75 games.
Right, but Kyrie tweaking something and being out, and then, the other person that I know we move on, I feel bad for Clay.
Yeah.
Clay's like, catch and shoot. The catch part of catch and shoot, somebody got to throw me the ball. I don't know, man.
It's brutal. All right, moving on to his old story, but with a new take on it. The Face of the League story popped up while we were on vacation, and Brew wanted to give you the opportunity to comment on it. So here was LeBron responding to the original story, which started when Anthony Edwards said he wasn't interested in being the Face of the League. Weird energy. It's a great comment. Brew, your reaction.
There's so many angles to hit on this. First of all, I don't think that's why Anthony Edwards doesn't want to be the face of the league.
I think it's a piece of it.
I think it's because, and this is fair, I'm not criticizing him for this. I think it's because he doesn't want people in his lifestyle. I don't think it has anything to do with people going to be critical of my game.
Here was his quote. I want to be the guy that just shows up, hoops, kills dudes, and goes home.
Yeah.
He don't want you in his business.
No, correct.
And LeBron has been terrific. Obviously got a great family life and everything. He's handled face of the league tremendously.
Yep.
Anthony Edwards just don't want you up in my business seeking out things and all that stuff. But here, let me say this first of all. The NBA, and this is one of the benefits of being a guy that covered the league for 25 years and just, being an older guy, I remember this. The NBA has always been criticized. Like, this is not new. I'll go by decade. In the 70s, the league was too black and it was too drug infested. That was the storyline. Yeah. And it was on tape delay, the championship games, because of it. In the 80s, even though you had Magic and Bird, the view was, oh, it's no parity. It's obvious. It's predictable. 5 teams in the whole decade of the 80s made the finals. 5. Yeah. That's it. The Rockets, the Sixers, the Lakers, the Pistons, and the Celtics. That's it. All right, so there was no parity. In the 90s, people were saying the league's watered down. Now they've expanded. They got a few more teams. The league's watered down. See, here you go. The league was watered down. And again, covering the league in the 90s, there was a lot of consternation over the low scoring. That was the first decade the league scoring had dropped into the 90s.
And there was one other, too much money too quickly. Like
for the players?
Yes, like Chris Webber deal and the KG
deal. That's why they put in the rookie scale and all that stuff. Yeah. Yes. And then in the 2000 and the aughts or whatever, who's going to take the place of Michael Jordan? And that was a search because the ratings dropped once Jordan retired. So you had this search. 2010s. Oh, now they're all friendly. LeBron, player empowerment. He goes to play with Wade and that all became a criticism, and now you got load management and three-point shooting. I'm not saying the criticisms, some of them aren't valid, but I'm saying this isn't new. What's new is the technology and the landscape. What's new are shows like this, not new now, but daily sports shows where every day you talk about mainly the NFL and the NBA. And so LeBron James, I've said for years, and I stand by it, LeBron is the most scrutinized athlete, basketball player ever.
I think athlete.
And maybe American athlete ever, okay? But that is largely because of the landscape. So there are shows like this. And LeBron, and he's a friend of mine, and he's a legend. But LeBron had like one guy kind of dedicated to picking his game apart, and that was Skip Bayless. And every day, if LeBron missed a potential game winner in Utah on a Tuesday in January, it was
a referendum.
For five shows a day would talk about it, and Skip would obviously go off on it. When Jordan did that, nobody even remembers.
But did that happen in Utah? Because he was
not in Utah. Maybe that was the but you know what I mean? Like the scrutiny is crazy. And I will throw this in.
Yeah.
Because LeBron didn't want to make this about himself. This is largely about LeBron.
It's about LeBron.
Because Steph is the face of the league. He's second to LeBron. Steph doesn't get this type of scrutiny and criticism. LeBron's polarizing because he does a lot off the court. He's outspoken about his politics and things like that. Player empowerment, going to Miami, people put that on him. So, and he's in the GOAT conversation. So all of that leads to LeBron being polarizing. And so this scrutiny is on him because of the landscape today. But it's not automatic. Because again, Steph doesn't get it at all.
But
like there's not much negative about it.
Well, I had a question. You go, and then I had a question.
Okay, so I think there's a bunch to it. I think a lot of the guys felt. So Simmons on his pod went through all the different like superstar guys who got criticized.
During in the past.
Yeah, from 70s to now.
Right.
And what all of those instances that he brought up, and listen, he is a basketball historian, they were accurate, had in common was they were all either about specific playoff failures, Tragic Johnson, or massive criticism before you got over the hump. Jordan before he won the title. Like that's what they all had in common. And up until this era, I think this era of guys, LeBron, KD, guys my age essentially, grew up seeing how the NBA was covered. And they all kind of understood the rules, which is until you win, people are going to be like, can you win? Right. But then once you win, you're a winner. And for this generation, those aren't the rules. It is a constant referendum even once you've won on no one like it is LeBron. And so LeBron is also dealing with a face of the league tenure, the likes of which we've never seen. You went through the list of them, right. Brew, like Dr. J for a brief period, Bird and Magic for a decade, but it was shared. Yep. You know what I mean? Yep. Jordan for 4 years, and then he retired, then 3 years. You know what I mean? So, like, he got a break from it.
He was before he started winning.
Okay, so for 5 years.
Still,
all right, so
he was largely once he got. I wouldn't say
okay, so
year,
six years and then a break, whatever. But LeBron's been face of the league-ish from 07 to now, and the guy for a decade of that. Right. And so nobody's dealt with it, and then there is this piece of it. And I'm guilty of it. And I think this is the other thing he's talking about, because it's not just him. LeBron, I feel, has been covered so unfairly is the wrong word, but as you said, daily dissection, and even with all the winning, still questions. The snapback of that is, how many times have you heard this on TV, either from me or others? Well, if it were LeBron, we'd be killing him. And therefore, we got to kill this guy. It's like, well, we did it to LeBron, so we've got to do it like Joker. I did it to him. Till he won, how do we know he can win? You know what I mean? With Giannis,
but
it's great you won. But that goes back
to what you said, that until you win, you're going to get criticized.
Right, but I think even post, like Durant, like there's a lot of these guys, the way LeBron was picked apart then became the template for other guys, which is why I've said for a long time, I think the Goldilocks zone of NBA life is being somewhere from the 10th to 20th best player in the league. It's like Devin Booker or Jaylen Browns. You get paid the same. When you're awesome in a big spot, everyone loves you. And when you come up short in a big spot, they blame the better player on your team. And so you get almost all of the accoutrement, none of the criticism, and when you're great, you can win Finals MVP. But like when you're the top guys, it is rough.
But see, Durant, the criticism of him is sometimes the burner accounts, that's way back, but him going at it with other just random people on social media, and then, yes, you won, and I give him credit for winning. But it was in a situation that we knew you were going to win.
But even with Steph had 3 rings. And we all said he needed the 4th.
MVP. Well, he needed to be Finals
right.
MVP.
And so it just does feel like it's an extra level. What Wilds?
No, I was just thinking.
No,
I was just thinking.
But I just think with LeBron, a lot of it's the GOAT conference. Like, it's because he's compared. Mahomes is going to fall. If Mahomes goes into any little drought, and I don't even mean not making the playoffs or anything, but a Super Bowl drought, he's going to be ripped because he hasn't been Tom Brady the last 3 years or whatever it'll be. He will suffer from the same thing.
I do think there is a level of being in the GOAT conversation plus having people really invested in that conversation that works against LeBron. Works for him as well. I'm not going to act like it doesn't. But I think that the shadow of Jordan and the framing of all basketball discussions, is being kind of set by Jordan's career, I think has affected this a lot. But I also think the general tenor, I also agree with him that the generation of guys talking about the league being older guys, a lot of them are like, it was better back in my day, I think irks the players. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.